Welcome to another edition of the Big News Roundup. I'm Bill Thomas, and here's what's happening right now. Calls grow to place Governor Tim Walz behind bars. A vast majority of Americans say they want all illegal immigrants to leave our country as Homeland Security Chief Kristi Noem, get this, she just lost her gig. A leading Democrat claims that random people off the street can do a better job managing the Iran war than President Trump. And oops, looks like one of the planet's best-known pop stars is in hot water yet once again. All this and a bunch more is coming up right now on the Big Roundup. We begin today with this, and following an extremely contentious hearing on Capitol Hill, the calls are now growing much louder for embattled Governor Tim Walz to pay for his utter negligence regarding Minnesota's staggering fraud schemes by spending a good chunk of time in the slammer. Time for some jailhouse rock. In case you missed it, earlier this week, members of the House Oversight Committee blasted both Walz and his equally culpable Democratic sidekick, Attorney General Keith Ellison, all for their roles in presiding over what they call one of the most extensive breakdowns of government stewardship they've ever seen. Now, Minnesota's highest-ranking congressman, a guy called Republican Tom Emmer, is joining the chorus as well, and he says that if all of the incriminating accusations prove to be true, Walz and his partner should both be sent to jail for a nice long vacation. They're going to love the fine cuisine at the prison canteen. Speaking on behalf of all Americans, an irate Emmer says that people are sick and tired of elected officials who are treated differently than they are, and that if these two clowns are indeed as dirty as it appears, then they should be held accountable for their crimes and locked up as soon as possible in a cozy little 6x8 room behind bars. By the way, it's about the size of one of those old, big Pontiacs. As evidence, he points to an alarming congressional report which accuses Walz of knowing full well about the fraud much earlier than was previously thought and refusing to do absolutely anything about it, and all over fear that he would receive backlash from far-left radicals, as well as his state's Somali community. Furthermore, Emmer doubles down by saying that if it can be proven that Walz was lying to the committee in any way, that's a crime in and of itself, adding that the best way to get to the bottom of the matter once and for all, that'd be to call him back to Washington and have him testify, this time under oath. Taking it a step further, the lawmaker now alleging that the governor may have cheated by committing campaign fraud as well, says that by intentionally currying favor with the local Somali community through his lack of oversight, Walz may have picked up just enough votes to put himself over the top and thus hand himself an election victory. And whatever it takes to win, apparently, in some circles, that's pretty much all that matters. For his part, Governor Fraud gracefully acknowledges that widespread fraud took place under his watch, reiterating that he's already taken full responsibility for what happened many times over. He also claims his administration has been trying to resolve the issue for years now, while admitting that in order to provide the benefits to the people who need them most, it's vital for government officials to be responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars. Final thought, and this is the News Roundup Lowdown. Here is the bottom line, the way we see it. If you enjoyed that movie, Sleepless in Seattle, then you're going to love the follow-up. And it's called Frauding in Minnesota. Yeah, it's a brand new picture show. It stars Hollywood heartthrob Tim Walz with his amazing co-star Keith Ellison. And here's what the big movie is going to all be about. Tons and tons of 20s, 50s, and $100 bills, yeah, they go missing in Minnesota. And all that dough adds up to a reported $9 billion. The two villains in the movie, Toxic Tim and Courageous Keith, they dummy up, claim they have no knowledge of where the cash went, and then things take a turn for the worse. I think they call that in showbiz a plot twist. The whole world finds out about all the stolen dough. Arrests and convictions of a bunch of con artist thugs are made lickety-split, but the two stars, yeah, they jump on their donkeys and attempt to ride off into the sunset. Unfortunately, this time of year in Minnesota, sunsets are kind of rare, as you can imagine. Plenty of snow, but sunsets a little iffy. Yeah, their plans are thwarted, and they're called in to testify in wonderful Washington, D.C. Now, at the hearing, both of our heroes say they were serious about prosecuting fraud once it was brought to their attention, but the grown-ups in the room, yeah, they don't buy it. It's pretty much where the picture ends, but in the sequel, which is in pre-production right now, my screenwriter pals tell me that both Walz and Ellison get sent to the pen where they score jobs making license plates for 25 cents per hour each, not together. So, at that rate, it's going to take roughly 36 billion hours to pay back the $9 billion worth of fraud. I did the math for you. You know, I'm like you. I dig a story with a happy ending. And if you enjoyed this movie synopsis, leave us a comment. Tell us what you think. And a mid-program reminder, take 2 seconds out of your busy life and hit that subscribe button. It's easy. Doesn't cost you a nickel. Anybody could do it. All right, time for us to change subjects now and take a closer look at what Americans have to say about the Trump administration's policy concerning illegal immigration, mass deportations, and a bunch more. According to a new Harvard poll, a vast majority of people in this country now say they want all immigrants who are here illegally to be sent home right away, with both Republicans and independents together leading the charge. Absolutely. Experts say the poll's surprising and widespread display of support for the president's agenda is extremely noteworthy because it has managed to remain so strong despite drastic efforts by the other guys, the Democrats, and their mainstream media cohorts to convince the public to whistle a completely different tune, an out-of-tune tune. However, the poll also shows that while most people are in favor of what's going on, far fewer of them approve of some of the more extreme strong-arm methods which are being used to get that job done. As a result, more than half now say they're against the hiring of thousands of new ICE agents whose employment would be essential to ramping up those deportation efforts by conducting immigration raids throughout our entire country. It's a big deal. In the meantime, the Department of Homeland Security now reportedly expanding their search for illegal aliens by specifically targeting the business paperwork of a large number of different restaurants to see exactly whom they're hiring. Those searches are apparently, by the way, paying dividends by forcing those restaurants to actually fire dozens of questionable workers while handing those jobs to higher paid American citizens. Additionally, DHS claims that nearly 2 million illegal immigrants have already opted to self-deport and head for home, thus lowering the rent for millions of American citizens as well. All sounds pretty grand to me. A win-win, they say. Despite those achievements, however, it does look like the department is going to be forging ahead without the guidance of their former chief, Kristi Noem, who's just been given the hook by President Trump, and that's following extreme bipartisan criticism of her recent handling of the administration's immigration crackdown. Yeah, time to turn in your ID badge and your keys, and here's 2 weeks severance. Good luck, kid. The president also says he plans to nominate Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin to take her place at the top of DHS while giving Noem a consolation prize by naming her special envoy to his brand new Shield of the Americans initiative, which focuses on security right here in the Western Hemisphere.
You're fired.
Chief, the planetarium party.
Oh, right. You're unfired. I need you. Come here.
So I guess I have to issue a retraction. Keep your ID badge and keep your keys for now. We'll talk about the severance a little later. Final thought, and this is the News Roundup Lowdown. And take a minute and really take this in. Really think about this. And I'm no scholar, but it's all right there in black and white in our U.S. Constitution. One of the primary responsibilities of our U.S. government, protect the border. You know, it's a long-standing policy. There's nothing new here, and the Trump administration is doing nothing more than upholding the law. Right now, today, more than half of the U.S. population agrees to not only having a secure border, but they're also committed to finding those who are here illegally, detaining them, and then as rapidly as possible, deporting them. This is all getting so much attention because the previous administration failed to live up to their constitutional oath. They failed to protect the border, and they did more than just turn a blind eye to illegal immigration. It would appear as though, when you think about it, they actually kind of encouraged it. Irrefutably, their reasons were nefarious. It was for personal and political gain. And when many of those illegal immigrants were shuttled in, they ended up in sanctuary cities where they committed additional crimes. Not all of them, but some of them. Adding insult to injury, tons of those individuals are protected by local and state leadership. And when you break it down, it's really nothing more than manufactured bedlam. That's where communities are dragged down, and everybody suffers as a result. Change of leadership, change of plans. The fix is in. Our country is in the process of being taken back. And naturally, well, the Democrats are up in arms. Blue states, their leadership, passionately searching for crime, disorder, chaos, and mayhem. And whatever it takes, we got to band together, and they've got to be stopped. By the way, to my knowledge, every sovereign country has immigration laws to regulate who can enter, stay, and work within its borders. And it all makes perfect sense. You leave us a comment if you agree or even if you disagree and tell us what you're thinking. And while you're doing that, please make note of that subscribe button. It's looking very lonely right now, and tell a friend or two to subscribe as well. All right, shifting gears now, pivoting to a cranky, loudmouth Democrat who's throwing down the gauntlet, becoming increasingly belligerent and taking a firm stance against just about everything the Trump administration ever decides to do. In yet another desperate bid for attention, that bald-headed senator fella, Mark Kelly of Arizona, making the rounds on left-wing media once again and frantically railing against Team Trump in every possible way. In particular, the former Navy captain and combat pilot completely foaming at the mouth when it comes to Operation Epic Fury, claiming that any random group of people off the street can do a much better job of managing the Iran war than the president and his current team of flunkies. He called them flunkies. Calm down, Captain. Now, using his previous battle experience as an example, Kelly then goes on to further blast the Trump administration by saying that right now they don't have any idea what they're doing at all. Well, they must have some kind of idea. He also claims they don't have a goal of any type or a strategic plan whatsoever, adding that because there's no definite timeline to bring the conflict to an end, their decisions are likely to result in a long war, lots of dead soldiers, and a little benefit, very little benefit for the struggling American public. Okay, Debbie Downer. Furthermore, the senator doubles down by saying that things aren't going well at present because the president doesn't listen to anyone or take any advice at all, instead choosing to surround himself with a bunch of incompetent yes men who provide him with a great deal of useless and incorrect information. Go fly one of your airplanes and be quiet. Zip it already.
Hey! Zip it.
Final thoughts, and this is the News Roundup Lowdown. So you know, this Mark Kelly guy, a very accomplished fella, and you got to check out his resume. Served our country as a U.S. Navy combat pilot, also a NASA astronaut, and now he's some big-time senator for Arizona. No doubt about it, he's a bright guy, but regarding all that time he spent in space, he may very well be oxygen deprived. And in aviation, I think they call that one hypoxia. Now, look, in life, you can say all manner of ignorant things, but to say that any knucklehead off the street could handle the Iran war better than the way it's being handled by the Trump administration, well, that just proves clearly that the space traveler lacks any deep knowledge of all that the administration has done, is doing right now, and is prepared to do moving forward. Kooky Kelly says that with regard to Iran, there's no stated goal. It's amazing this guy can actually fly an aircraft. And actually, there is a stated goal, but in Kelly's defense, it's a real small, insignificant, almost not even worth mentioning goal. But I'll give it a plug anyway, just for posterity. Hey, Spaceboy, Iran has threatened to destroy our ally, Israel. They've made repeated threats against the U.S. as well. They've been desperately trying to become a nuclear power for a number of years. They're a global threat. Their human rights abuses against their own citizens are well documented and pure evil. And there's a bunch more. Unfortunately, we're a little short on time, so I'll just throw that at you to begin with. Clueless Kelly is also curious, with a capital K, as to how this war helps the American people. You're a dunce. The American people benefit greatly by toppling a regime that threatens our nation, tries to close the Strait of Hormuz, funds and supports terrorist organizations, and more. There's also this, it's part of what America does. By standing up to murderous dictator thugs in Iran, we have the chance to assist in the liberation of, check this out, 93 million Iranian citizens. By the way, if memory serves correctly, I think the U.S. played a vital role in liberating a few people in Western Europe back in World War II as well. And pretty much that's what we do, Senator Spaceboy. Get some oxygen, read a newspaper, and think before you speak. With all due respect, you're an oxygen-deprived dope. We have to help the citizens of Iran. All right, stay on topic now and follow up with a bit of a different perspective from an expert who says the war in Iran has definitely thrown a monkey wrench into Communist China's sinister plan to replace the U.S. at the head of the table and establish a new world order. In your face, China. The expert works for a conservative think tank called the Hudson Institute. I've heard of that one. And she says the Chinese communist regime has spent decades investing in Iran and its proxies throughout the Gulf region in order to develop a stronghold for their global strategy. Well, how's that global strategy thingy panning out for you? She goes on to say that Beijing knows full well they can't rise without weakening our nation, and that launching Operation Epic Fury has completely upset their plans by resetting the chessboard throughout the entire Middle East. I'm kind of a checkers guy, but in chess, I think that's what they call checkmate. Furthermore, she also says that once other countries catch wind of how quickly the Islamic Republic is falling apart despite all their glorified military help they've been getting from China, it's going to lead to a ripple effect across the entire planet, thus forcing nations all over the world to reconsider their partnerships with Beijing. And very soon, everyone will be changing dance partners, so you know in advance. Now, a couple of additional headlines we're also keeping our eyes on right here in the sprawling News Roundup newsroom. And first, the war in Iran continues to expand with U.S. forces dominating the field of battle. American commanders promising to intensify their efforts even further, and embattled Tehran vowing to avenge their losses by spilling Trump's blood. And those are fighting words. Moving along, claiming that free and fair elections are currently under attack, former President Barack Obama now endorsing an effort by Democrats to redraw the congressional map in Virginia. That move expected to net his party up to 4 additional seats in the House of Representatives. And like they say on the other team, if you can't win the election, you simply rig the election. And in California, a giant robotic printing machine is on the way to creating an entire neighborhood of 3D printed houses, with those homes selling for the affordable price of just under $300,000 apiece. I think I want one of those. Or as they say, making houses affordable again. I think I like that. All right, scooting along now to a bit of showbiz news and kicking things off, a bad break for legendary musical superstar, the one and only princess of pop, Britney Spears. Yeah, making headlines once again after getting arrested in Ventura, California, about an hour up the coast out of downtown L.A., this time for driving under the influence. Now, the 44-year-old oops, I did it again singer handcuffed, booked, and charged by the Highway Patrol after allegedly failing a field sobriety test when she was pulled over, all for driving erratically in her black BMW automobile. You know, a DUI is 100% of the time inexcusable, wholly avoidable, and just downright irresponsible, especially when you're rich and famous. In other words, she has resources, and if she's had a bit too much to drink, you simply hire a driver, take an Uber, or better yet, don't go out for cocktails unless you bring along a designated driver. I'll be your designated driver. You know, everybody makes mistakes in life, and this time, fortunately, nobody got hurt. Yes, I'm scolding you, Britney Spears. Do better.
Leave Britney Spears alone right now. I mean it.
Calm down. I'm just saying she could have had a Perrier or maybe a bottle of Dr. Pepper. With the Oscars right around the corner, a bit of great news for movie buffs as legendary crooner Barbra Streisand now reportedly in talks to perform a tribute to her The Way We Were co-star Robert Redford, Bob, at next week's Academy Awards ceremony. Sources say if all goes according to plan, Babs, she hopes to sing during the show's in memoriam segment, and that it still remains to be seen whether or not she'll be joined by anyone else on stage. You know, it's great to know that Barbra Streisand is still in the game and can't wait to see her performing at this year's big awards show. She's absolutely the best at what she does. She has never, not even once, she's never ever hit a sour note in her entire life. And her performance will absolutely be the highlight of the show. That might not be as big as Will Smith belting Chris Rock during the 2022 awards program. Won't be as ghastly as the 1974 awards show with a streaker who ran across the stage live on national TV, but you know, by all accounts, I think it's going to be a pretty remarkable night. And with that, it's time for us now to call it a wrap on the big news roundups. Have an awesome day. I think the weekend's getting closer and closer. Please stay safe. If you haven't done it already, it's right there, the old subscribe button. Just give it a click. And with that, we're going to dim the lights. It's fade to black, and we'll see you right back here next time with another episode of the Big News Roundup.